The new book, Star Wars Dark Legends by George Mann, comes out today. Like its predecessor last year, Myths and Fables, it offers a handful of new tall tales set in the Star Wars universe. But this time they're spooky. But seriously, this was a fun little storybook. I said Myths and Fables would make for good bedtime stories for young Star Wars fans, and this one is kinda the same. Some of the stories do get more intense than I would have expected, but for the most part, it's just a fun time, and I still found a lot to appreciate in each of the tales. There are 7 in total, and again, like Myths and Fables, each is paired with a piece of artwork by Griffin, who did a great job. I think the Grand Inquisitor, styled like Nosferatu, was my favorite piece, but they all look very nice. But what I appreciated most about this book was the fact that it doesn't just dive into the dark side for the sake of being edgy or anything like that. This is still Star Wars, and each story has a lesson to impart. They read like fables still, but this time they're all more cautionary tales. Many of the characters dive into the dark side themselves, whether they're Force-sensitive or not, and we get to see the folly of their ways. The story about the Night Sister fighting against a Sith Lord was especially inspired, warning of how the drive for revenge can consume you. Preoccupation with your enemies means you're focused on them and not yourself or the ones who love you. Let them go and live your own life, because if your so-called enemies take up all your time and energy, haven't they already beaten you? The story on Exegol also warned against obsession of another kind, ambition. A Sith Lord wishes to gain immortality, surprise surprise, and we see what that could actually look like in the end, which obviously isn't all it's cracked up to be. There are also some interesting possible implications for Rey, or what might have happened to her had she gone through with the ritual with Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. But I don't want to act like every story in here is all doom and gloom. A lot of them are, because that's the theme of the book, but there's still some hopefulness sprinkled in. The Grand Inquisitor story is like a boogeyman-style tale of a child standing up to evil and the thing that scares her and her friends. There's kind of a werewolf story that cautions against greed, but also shows a group of friends who care for each other. Like the first book, I had a lot of fun picking out what I think may or may not be true in each story. Some are more outlandish than others, but we've been told there's always a bit of truth to legends. I'll do a more spoilery discussion of the book soon. For now, I feel comfortable recommending this one if you're into these kinds of stories that may or may not be true. I know some people care very much about what is and isn't canon, and I could see something like this frustrating someone who wants things to be more transparent. But it's a very fast read, and it looks nice as a display piece on a shelf when you're done. I will say that it's a smaller book than Myths and Fables. I put that first book out on display in our living room because I think it looks kind of fancy. I did the same with Dark Legends, but it does bother me a little that it's not the same size. Obviously, that's not a huge deal, but since I was planning on it being a display piece after the fact, other people might have had the same plan, and I figured you might want to know that. But that's what I think of Dark Legends. I'd love to hear what you think of it in the comments when you finish reading it. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.